The UK has outlined plans to achieve its target of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Hundreds of billions of dollars are to be spent on the transition to electric vehicles and clean energy. Poland's Prime Minister has accused the EU of blackmail in a public clash with the European Commission chief over the country's rejection of parts of EU law. Ursula von der Leyen said the EU could withhold money from Warsaw. The US has condemned North Korea for a suspected ballistic missile launch, which is the latest violation of strict international sanctions. Pyongyang unveiled the missile in January, describing it as the world's most powerful weapon. And a 96-year-old woman accused of complicity in mass murder during the Holocaust has been in court in Germany. Prosecutors say she assisted in the killing of thousands of prisoners while working as a typist at the Stutthof camp.
In Myanmar, friends and family cheer the release of prisoners for a second day. Thousands had been jailed for protesting the military's seizure of power. In France, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says Poland will be punished for disputing the power of EU laws. In Iraq, supporters of the Iran-supported Fatah alliance demand a recount of a parliament vote in which the group lost more than 30 seats. And in Ukraine, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says American support for Ukraine's independence and borders is strong.
More than 1,000 candidates have kicked off their campaigns in Japan's lower house election. The ruling coalition wants to maintain its majority and stay in power, but there's an attempt to block it. Opposition parties are unifying behind single candidates in many constituencies in an effort to consolidate support. All 465 seats in the lower house are up for grabs. 289 will be decided in single-seat districts and 176 through a system of proportional representation. A majority is 233 seats. Prime Minister Kishida Fumio says if the governing coalition can secure a majority, he would consider it a victory. The coalition held 305 seats when he dissolved the chamber last week. Let's look at the final list of parties competing in single-seat districts, as well as the number of candidates they're fielding. Liberal Democratic Party of Japan. The Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan. Komeitou. Japanese Communist Party. Nippon Ishin Japan Innovation Party. Democratic Party for the People. Reiwa Shinsengumi. Social Democratic Party. The party fighting against NHK in the trial for violating Article 72 of the Attorney Act. Yamato Party. The Japan First Party. Other groups and independents. And here are the numbers of candidates only in the running under the proportional representation system. Liberal Democratic Party of Japan. The Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan. Komeitou. Japanese Communist Party. Nippon Ishin Japan Innovation Party. Democratic Party for the People. Reiwa Shinsengumi. Social Democratic Party. The party fighting against NHK in the trial for violating Article 72 of the Attorney Act. Shiji Nashi. Yamato Party. Party for strengthening COVID measures. The Japan First Party. This is the first lower house election in 4 years and the first nationwide vote since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Candidates are debating issues like antivirus measures and ways to get Japan's economy back on track. The campaign runs for 12 days. Next, Pacific nations are looking into North Korea's missile launch on Tuesday morning, the latest in a series of recent weapon tests. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command calls it a destabilizing act, but not an immediate threat, and Japan condemns it.
North Korea launched 2 ballistic missiles a short while ago. It's deeply regrettable that North Korea has successively launched missiles since last month.
Japan's defense minister told reporters one of the missiles is presumed to have traveled about 600 kilometers before falling into the sea outside Japan's exclusive economic zone. South Korea's military says the North only launched 1 missile, which it assumes to be a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Government officials say it could have been the first launch from a submarine rather than an underwater launcher. North Korea has ramped up weapon testing in recent months, putting nations on edge. Experts believe this was the fourth ballistic missile test this year. Earlier, we spoke to James Kim in Seoul to get more insight into the launches. He's a research fellow at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies and an expert on Korean Peninsula issues.
The timing is very interesting because there's a high-level official meeting in Washington regarding the discussion regarding the issue of North Korea. And there is scheduled to be an intelligence official meeting in Seoul involving high-ranking officials from U.S., Japan, and South Korea as well. The fact that this act of provocation is timed with these two high-level meetings seems to suggest that there's some kind of intent here on part of North Korea to send a signal that it wants to re-engage on negotiations related to denuclearization. So what we're seeing starting this year is that these provocations are becoming more frequent, more so than we've seen in last year or the year before. And it also seems to be the case that these provocations are also timed with certain kinds of meetings or events that are happening either in Washington, Seoul, or Tokyo. What this seems to suggest is that North Korea wants to re-engage on its own terms, and that it is timing its provocations to these events. If that's the case, and the U.S. is not re-engaging with North Korea on North Korea's terms by providing certain kinds of concessions before the meeting, it is likely that we're going to see higher level provocations over time. Perhaps even there's a possibility that if the U.S. holds back, that the North Koreans might even test ICBMs or even engage in another round of nuclear tests. So these are all possibilities that we have to be open to.
The top U.S. envoy to Afghanistan is stepping down amid growing criticism of the Biden administration's chaotic withdrawal from the country. Zalmay Khalilzad will be replaced by his deputy, Thomas West. Khalilzad served under both Presidents Donald Trump and Joe Biden as special representative for Afghanistan reconciliation. He led efforts to sign a peace deal with the Taliban last year, promising a full withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan. The deal called for the group to prevent the country from becoming a terror hotbed again. After the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan was completed at the end of August, Khalilzad negotiated with the Taliban to help U.S. citizens and their Afghan associates leave the country. Turning now to Brazil, where people mourning the loss of loved ones to the coronavirus are having their say in Congress. The country's death toll exceeds 600,000, the second highest in the world. Bereaved families slammed the government on Monday at a special Senate commission investigating the response to the pandemic. Some say inadequate measures prompted a surge in fatalities. Others are questioning the tone of the nation's leader in a time of crisis.
I felt devastated when President Jair Bolsonaro mockingly imitated the labored breathing of a COVID patient.
One man says President Bolsonaro's negative views on face masks and vaccines were factors behind the death of his son, who was in his 20s. The relatives presented lawmakers with 600 white cloths to symbolize the dead. They also called for Bolsonaro's government to be held fully accountable in a final report. Japanese baseball pitcher Matsuzaka Daisuke has ended his 23-year professional career, which included 8 seasons in the U.S. major leagues. Matsuzaka took the mound for the last time as a professional player on Tuesday.
野球が好きだっていう、まあその都度こう、思い出して、なんとかその、気持ちが消えないように、戦っていた時期はありますね。好きなまま終われてよかったです。
The 41-year-old legend earned the nickname Monster of the Heisei era when he led his high school team to victory in both the spring and summer national championships in 1998. After graduating, Matsuzaka joined the Seibu Lions and played 8 seasons for the Pacific League team. In 2007, Matsuzaka moved to the major leagues and helped the Boston Red Sox win a World Series championship that year. Since last year, he's been playing for his old club, now known as the Saitama Seibu Lions. In his last game, Matsuzaka took the mound as a starter and faced just one batter who drew a walk. Matsuzaka has a total of 170 career wins, 114 in Japan, and 56 in the major leagues.
Whatかをきっかけに、まさかあんなボール投げてたな、あんなバッターと対戦したな、あんなゲームあったなって思い出してくれたら、いいかなと思います。
Staying here in Japan, Princess Mako has visited the imperial sanctuaries to tell her ancestors about her marriage. She'll soon tie the knot and lose her status. The eldest daughter of Crown Prince and Princess Akishino arrived at the palace on Tuesday morning. Imperial household officials say Princess Mako first visited the Kashikodokoro, the sanctuary dedicated to the first imperial ancestress. She then reported her marriage at 2 other sanctuaries dedicated to all imperial ancestors and the deities of heaven and earth. Princesses usually visit the sanctuaries as an imperial rite before they marry. But Princess Mako has foregone all rituals. She's treating these as private visits. Princess Mako intends to marry her college sweetheart, Komuro Kei, on October 26th. The pair will then speak to the media. After the marriage, Princess Mako must leave the imperial household and become a commoner. Komuro recently returned to Japan from the United States, where he was studying law. The couple plan to settle in New York, where Komuro is set to work at a law firm. Shifting down to the weather, residents of Peru are seeing heavy rain from the weekend, with many houses being damaged due to floods and landslides. Our meteorologist Jonathan O has the details in our World Weather Report.
Hello, heavy rain has been rolling through Peru over the past few days, and that has led to some flooding problems in the country. Here's a look at some of the video to give you an idea of the situation on the ground as torrential rain battered parts of Peru during the weekend, causing rivers to overflow and highways to flood. Heavy rain has left dozens of homes flooded and at least 5 at risk of collapse. Residents demanded the authorities clean the riverbeds to avoid additional flooding. Now, the wet season has just started in the country, and that usually will continue into April. We are looking at the chance for some rain in Peru. It looks like that the amount may not be that high as we go throughout the day, Tuesday moving in toward Wednesday. But again, not looking at significant amounts. Most of that's going to be way off to the north and west. So that's going to hopefully be helpful in terms of that situation. Clouds into Lima with a high of 19. More thunderstorms toward the north and toward the east into Brazil for Wednesday. Speaking of rain, we're seeing plenty of it into the United Kingdom, also into Ireland, and also over into the Scandinavian Peninsula as we have a low-pressure system rolling through. Meanwhile, high pressure is the big story down toward the south, so that's helping to keep temperatures quite warm. And so as we go into the next 24 hours, plenty of rain for the north, staying dry toward the south, and that's going to be the forecast as we go into Wednesday as well. 22 for the high in Rome, also to Athens, but rain and thunderstorms up toward the north, so be on the lookout for that. Across East Asia, Japan seeing a cool day, and we are looking at the possibility of seeing some strong winds and some thunderstorms up toward the northern areas of Japan as we go forward into Wednesday. Back toward the west into China, we do have this unstable pattern in place as well. So rain from Chongqing into Shanghai with highs in the mid-teens. Tokyo looking high of 22 on Wednesday, and we are looking at a chance for some rain as well. That's the forecast. Hope you have a good day wherever you are.